There's a specific noise a building makes when it's unhappy. I know that sounds like the kind of thing you'd read on a greeting card, not something a maintenance supervisor would say, but it's true. 22 years I've been working inside the Aldridge Grand, and I learned pretty early that a building communicates. Pipes knock when pressure's wrong. Floors creak at load points before anything shows on a surface inspection. HVAC units hum differently in summer versus winter, and if you know the sound they're supposed to make, you hear it immediately when something's off by even half a degree. I'm standing in the middle of the Skybridge when the Aldridge starts talking to me. Not right away. First, it's just the usual Thursday morning sounds filtering up from 6 floors below. Traffic on Charter Street. Wind coming off the river, which is maybe 3 blocks east. The particular way the glass panels in this bridge vibrate at a certain wind speed. Not rattling, more like a low resonance you feel in your back teeth before you actually hear it. I've been meaning to log that vibration for 6 months. Always something else to get to first. It's 9:47 a.m. I know the time because I check my watch when I step onto the bridge. It's a habit. I've been on enough maintenance calls that turned into 3-hour jobs to know you document your start time. My clipboard says, Skybridge North Panel Inspection, Structural Seal Check, Aldridge Grand, /Convention CTR Connector, room for notes below. The seal on panels 7 through 11 has been weeping condensation on cold mornings, and November in Pittsburgh has been genuinely cold. 41 degrees outside right now. The bridge is supposed to be climate controlled at 68, but somewhere between the hotel end and the convention center end, warm air is meeting the glass and losing that argument. I have my flashlight, my radio, my maintenance belt, a thermos of coffee that's already getting cold, and my reading glasses hanging around my neck on the lanyard Donna gave me for Christmas 3 years ago. Pink flamingos on the lanyard. She thought it was funny. I've gotten enough comments about it from the guys in maintenance that it's basically part of my personality now. The bridge itself is about 120 feet end to end, 15 feet wide. Full glass walls from waist height up, steel frame below. You walk across it, and you can see everything. The street below, the buildings on either side, a slice of sky to the north, where Charter Street runs toward downtown. On a clear day, you can see the Allegheny. Today it's overcast and gray, the kind of gray that sits on Pittsburgh in November like it's been there all winter, and plans to stay until April. There are 3 people crossing when I step onto the bridge. A man in a business suit, mid-40s, rolling carry-on suitcase behind him. A woman maybe 30, phone out, not looking up. A housekeeping cart about halfway across. One of our maids, Bridget Coswell, pushing it toward the convention center side, where they were setting up guest rooms in the attached annex. We nod at each other. I've known Bridget for 11 years. She's one of those people who does her job so quietly and so completely that you only notice her when something isn't done, and in 11 years I've never noticed. "Morning," she says. "Morning, Bridget. You know anything about the condensation problem on panel 7? She glances at the glass. It's worse when it rains. Yeah, that tracks. I pull out my flashlight and crouch down to look at the seal at the base of the panel. Sure enough, there's a thin, dark line where the silicone has shrunk back from the frame. Hairline gap. Not dangerous, structurally, but it means moisture intrusion, and moisture intrusion on a steel frame glass bridge means you're on a slow clock toward corrosion. That's when my radio goes. It's Pete, my maintenance colleague on the hotel side. Pete Hargrove, been here 9 years, knows the boilers better than anyone alive. He doesn't usually call me unless something needs another set of hands or eyes. "Gary, you got your radio on you." "Always. What's up?" "Weird thing happening in the lobby." "You know the security desk near the east entrance?" "Yeah. There's a guy. I don't know, man. They're calling for the manager. I can hear it from the utility corridor. Something about a bite. A bite? Like a dog bite? Or like, I don't know. I just heard he bit someone, and then it got louder, and I couldn't make it out." "You near the lobby?" "No, I'm on the Skybridge, north panel inspection." "Okay, just, stay aware, I guess. I'll let you know." I think nothing of it. Incidents in hotel lobbies are not exactly rare. We have about 400 rooms and 2 conference centers, and at any given moment, there's a decent chance someone is having some kind of problem somewhere. Drunk at 9 in the morning isn't unheard of. People under stress do strange things. I go back to the seal inspection. I'm on panel 9 when I hear something change below me. It's not a sound you could describe if you weren't used to listening for building sounds. It's a shift in the ambient noise from the street. Not louder, exactly. Different. The traffic noise drops, which is strange, because traffic on Charter Street during a Thursday morning doesn't usually drop. It usually builds. And what replaces it is something more scattered, irregular. I stand up and look down through the glass. There are maybe 30 people visible on the sidewalk below, and most of them are moving wrong. I mean that literally. People walk in patterns. Even in a city, even random pedestrian movement, there's a logic to it. You stop for red lights. You yield at crosswalks. You don't walk in the middle of the road unless you're crossing. And when you cross, you move diagonally toward your destination with some kind of purpose. What I'm seeing from up here is different. People are moving in directions that don't make sense. Some are stopped completely. One man is face down on the sidewalk and nobody is going to help him. There's a scream, faint through the glass, but a scream. I'm watching 2 people near the corner of Charter and 5th. One is on the ground, the other is crouched over them, and the one crouching is not helping. My radio crackles. Gary, Pete's voice, and something in it has changed. Gary, get back to the hotel. Right now. Come back to the hotel side. What's happening? There's people in the lobby that are... Gary, I need you to come back right now. The security team is locking the east wing and I don't. There's a sound on his end. Loud, not static. Pete. No answer. I look at the business suit man. He's stopped walking, and he's looking down through the glass too. The woman with the phone has her phone up now, pointing it down at the street. What is that? She says, not to me, just to the air. What is that? I start walking toward the hotel end of the bridge. The door is steel framed, with a keycard reader on both sides, and a push-bar interior release. I'm 15 feet from it when I hear it. A solid, definitive chunk of sound that I have heard before exactly once, during a security drill 18 months ago. The electromagnetic lock, engaging. The door seals. I push the bar anyway. Nothing moves. I press my keycard to the reader. The light blinks red. I press it again, holding this time. Red. I pull my radio. Hotel security. This is Gary Whitfield, maintenance supervisor. I'm on the Skybridge. The north door just locked. I need someone to release the lock from the security panel. Do you copy? Static. Then a broken transmission. Someone's voice cut up by interference. Something about protocol. Something about the lobby. And then nothing. I turn around. The woman with the phone is looking at me. The business suit man has set his carry-on down and he's pressed against the glass looking down at the street. Bridget has come back down the bridge from the convention center end, and she's standing with her cart, watching me. The other end? I say to her. She shakes her head. I tried it when I heard you on the radio. Same thing. It locked. We are trapped on the Skybridge. All 5 of us. I stand there for a moment. Not panicking. Panic is not useful. I've been in tight spots in this building before. Locked in the sub-basement once when a control panel shorted, and that was 80 feet underground with no cell signal. I got out. I figure things out. But something about what I can see through the glass is already telling me that this is a different category of problem than a shorted control panel. Because below me, on Charter Street, one of the 30 people I was watching 30 seconds ago has gotten back up. The one who was face down. He's standing now, and he's walking toward a group of 3 others, and the way he's moving, I have no word for it except wrong. Not drunk, not injured. Just wrong. Like the signal between his brain and his legs has been rerouted through something that doesn't understand how walking is supposed to look. And he reaches the nearest person, and they go down. Okay, let me be straight about something. I am 54 years old. I have lived in Pittsburgh my entire life. I have watched movies. I have read books. I have had the same conversations everyone else has had about what you'd do, what the rules would be, where you'd go. I never took it seriously, because why would you take it seriously? It's a thought experiment. It's a thing you discuss at a barbecue after 3 beers. So when I say I know what I'm looking at, I want to be honest about what knowing felt like in that moment. It felt like a door opening in my mind that I didn't choose to open. It felt like something locking into place with the same chunk sound as that electromagnetic door. Because whatever that man who got up is, he is not a man having a medical episode. And the woman crouching over the person at the corner of Charter and 5th is not performing CPR. And the sounds coming up through the glass, faint but getting less faint, those are not ambulance sirens yet. Those are something else entirely. I turn to the other 4 people on this bridge, and I make a decision that I've thought about many times since. I decide not to explain what I think is happening. Not yet. Because explaining what I think is happening won't fix anything, and it might cause the kind of panicking that gets people hurt on a glass bridge 100 feet above a street. Okay, I say. Here's what we have. We're on a bridge. Both ends are locked, and there's some kind of incident in the city below us. Right now, the most important thing is to figure out our options. The woman with the phone, mid-30s, she tells me her name is Chloe Pratt. She's here for a nursing conference at the convention center. She's staring at her phone screen. I've got signal. Barely. I'm trying to call the hotel front desk. Good. Keep trying. I look at the business suit man. You, sir, what's your name? Martin. He's still looking out the glass. Martin Oakes. Martin, I need you to step back from the glass and help me think. What is happening down there? I don't know yet. Step back from the glass. He does. Barely. The young man I hadn't paid much attention to is sitting on the floor with his back against the steel frame. Hotel bellhop uniform. Name tag. Maybe 23 years old. He's got his knees drawn up and he's staring at the locked hotel door. His name tag says Theo. Theo, I say. He looks up. How long have you worked here? 3 months. Okay, 3 months is enough. Do you know where the maintenance access points are on this bridge? He shakes his head. I just cross it to bring luggage to the convention center guests. That's all right. I look at Bridget. She's the only one who looks like she's actually thinking rather than reacting. Her hands are on her cart handle and she's watching me. Bridget, you've been crossing this bridge as long as I have. You remember when they installed the midpoint storage room? 2 years ago, November. Right, I was here for that install. I start walking toward the middle of the bridge. There's a utility closet built into the structural frame, right at the midpoint. It's got supplies for bridge maintenance, cleaning stuff, spare seal materials, some tools. It's small, but it's there. The door has a key lock, Bridget says. Yeah. I pull my key ring from my belt. I have 43 keys on this ring. I know what every single one opens. The storage room on the Skybridge is key 31, a standard Medico that I cut myself when they installed the room. I put it in the lock and turn it. The door opens. The room inside is about 8 feet wide and maybe 12 feet deep, carved into the structural mass at the bridge's midpoint. Shelves on both walls. A ventilation grate in the ceiling that hums faintly. Fluorescent light that flickers once before steadying. No windows, which means it can't be seen through the glass walls of the bridge itself. Bridget pushes her cart up to the door, and we both look inside. Fits maybe 6 people if they don't mind being close, she says. 5 of us, plus your cart. It'll be tight, but it'll work. Are we staying in here? Martin Oakes, from behind me. For now, I say. I need to figure out what our options are, and how long we might be dealing with this. A room gives us a door. A door gives us control over who gets in. Chloe looks up from her phone. I got through to the front desk. Someone answered and then they just put me on hold. Or dropped the call. I'm not sure which. Keep trying. I look at the room again. Let's everyone come inside for now. Bring the cart in, Bridget. Whatever's on that cart, we're going to want it. It takes about 4 minutes to get everyone inside and the door mostly closed. I leave it open a crack because a sealed room with 5 people and no fresh air makes people feel more panicked, not less. The vent in the ceiling is pulling air from somewhere. Not much, but some. I stand in the doorway and look south, down the bridge toward the convention center end. The door at that end is glass paneled, and through it, I can see the hallway of the annex, dimly lit, apparently empty. No movement. Then I look north toward the hotel end. There's a man at the hotel door. He's on the interior side, so he's inside the hotel, pressing against the door's glass panel. And the way he's pressing is not someone trying to exit. He's not looking at the door handle. He's not looking at anything specific. He's just pressing against the glass with his face and his hands. And even from 60 feet away, even with the distance and the ambient light, I can see that something about his face is wrong. He's been there for maybe 20 seconds when a second person comes up behind him and does the same thing. And then a third. I pull the door closed quietly. "What's out there?" Theo asks from somewhere behind me in the room. "Nothing," I say. "Nothing yet." I'm not going to lie about what Thursday felt like from inside that storage room. It felt like being buried alive while watching a fire. The room had no windows to the outside, which was a gift and a curse at the same time. You couldn't see what was happening on the street below, which meant you didn't have to watch it get worse in real time. But it also meant you were relying entirely on sounds, and the sounds were getting worse in ways that descriptions won't fully capture. I'll try anyway. At first it was the street sounds changing. By 11 in the morning, Charter Street below us had gone from normal Thursday traffic to something that didn't have a category. No regular engine sounds, not a continuous flow. Instead, scattered movement, sudden acceleration, sometimes a long period of nothing and then a crash. Once, around 11:30, something big. I'm guessing a city bus based on the sound. A long impact, glass breaking, a kind of secondary crunching that took a while to stop. And after that, other sounds. Not traffic anymore. I'm not going to describe those sounds in detail. You either know what I mean, or you're going to have to trust me that they were sounds that confirmed what I already thought I understood about what was happening outside. Chloe was the first one to say it directly. She'd been sitting in the corner of the room with her phone, and her phone had finally died around noon. She sat with it in her hands for a while, looking at the black screen. Then she said, very quietly, so Martin didn't hear, "Gary, I need to talk to you for a second." We stepped as far to the back of the room as we could get, which was about 4 feet from Martin and Theo and Bridget. "I was at the nursing conference," she said. "There was a presentation yesterday afternoon about something the CDC was tracking. Not public yet." "I signed an NDA." She paused. "I think the NDA doesn't matter anymore." "Tell me." "There were reports out of 3 cities in the last 72 hours. Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Columbus. Violent episodes, rapid onset, people who presented as dead and then weren't. The CDC team presenting said they were still categorizing it, that it might be a pathogen, might be neurological, might be something they hadn't seen before. They didn't have a name for it. They said it was probably containable. Probably. Yeah. I looked at the closed door. The people at the hotel end of the bridge are probably infected. Yes. And they're going to keep coming to the glass because they can. Hear us. Yes. Or smell us. Honestly, from what the presentation said, they don't think, they don't reason, they don't plan. They follow stimuli, sound, movement, smell. They go toward it. I thought about that. The door at the hotel end. It's electromagnetic. Glass panel with steel frame. How long before? I don't know. I'm a nurse, not a structural engineer. Fair point. I looked at her. You're the most useful person on this bridge right now. And I need you to be honest with me about everything. Always. Even when it's going to scare me. She looked surprised at that. Okay? Good. Now let's figure out what we have. What we had, at the time of inventory on Thursday around 1 in the afternoon, was this. Bridget's housekeeping cart was a standard deep shelf rolling unit. She was mid-route when the lockdown hit, so the cart was about half full. Upper shelf, 68 miniature toiletry bottles, shampoo, conditioner, lotion, body wash, mostly 1 ounce sizes, 2 rolls of toilet paper, a box of tissues, 3 folded towels and 2 washcloths. Middle shelf, cleaning supplies, a spray bottle of general disinfectant, a bottle of bathroom cleaner, rubber gloves, a small bucket, a mop head still in its plastic wrap. Lower shelf, the useful stuff, 2 sealed packs of coffee pods, a basket of individually wrapped complimentary snacks from room amenity setups. I counted them later. 12 granola bars, 8 packets of mixed nuts, 4 chocolate bars, 6 bags of pretzels, 3 bottles of still water, sealed, 500 milliliters each, a small first aid kit in a red zippered pouch. My maintenance belt, 2 flashlights, 1 big LED torch, 1 smaller pen light, flathead and Phillips screwdrivers, needle nose pliers, wire strippers, electrical tape, 2 cable ties, a folding utility knife, a small crescent wrench, a magnetic pickup tool, my key ring with 43 keys, and a work phone that was getting no calls but still had some battery. Martin Oakes's carry-on suitcase. He opened it without complaint when I asked, which surprised me. Inside was the expected business traveler contents: dress shirts, toiletries, laptop, charger, useless now, a hardback novel, and at the bottom, a large bag of trail mix and 2 energy drinks that he'd apparently bought in the airport. He handed them over immediately. That went up slightly in my estimation of him. Theo had his pockets, hotel keycard, a granola bar he'd been saving, a lighter he admitted he used to smoke behind the loading dock, and his personal phone which had maybe 12% battery left. Chloe had her bag, her own phone, dead, a medical conference lanyard, a small notebook, 3 pens, a pack of Tylenol, 2 Benadryl, a tampon, chapstick, and $47 in cash. Also a full unopened water bottle, one of those 32-ounce reusable ones, and a pack of almonds. That was everything. I did the math on the food while the others talked quietly. It wasn't comforting math. The snacks from the cart, Martin's trail mix, Chloe's almonds, the granola bars, spread across 5 people. If we ate small portions twice a day, that was maybe 3 days. Maybe 4 if we pushed it. The water was worse. The 3 sealed bottles from the cart plus Chloe's 32 ounces came to about 82 ounces total. That's not even 2 liters. For 5 people, in a room with inadequate air circulation, under stress, that was maybe a day's careful rationing, possibly less. I didn't announce this math to the group. I wrote it in my work notebook, which I'd had in my back pocket. Then I started thinking about water specifically, because water was the immediate problem, and I'm a maintenance supervisor. Water is one of my subjects. "Bridget," I said, "the utility grate in the ceiling. Does this room have a drain in the floor?" She looked down. There was no floor drain visible, but the room had been built for bridge maintenance use, not occupancy. "I don't know," she said. "I do." I crouched and ran my hands along the floor near the back wall. The flooring in the maintenance room was bare concrete, not the carpet of the bridge itself, and it had a slight grade to it. At the back left corner, I found what I was looking for, a small floor drain cover, maybe 3 inches across. "There," I said. "This room has a drain, which means it's plumbed." I looked at the shelves. In the very back, behind a roll of weather stripping material, I found what bridge maintenance rooms always have, a utility sink. Wall-mounted, small, stainless steel, 1 handle. The faucet was cold water only. I turned the handle. Water came out. Not a lot, not great pressure, but water, and it kept coming. "Oh, thank God," Theo said from behind me, and I heard genuine relief in his voice that made me understand exactly how scared he'd been holding very still. "Don't drink it yet," I said. "Building water supply might be compromised. We'll use it for washing. We've got sealed water for drinking. But this means we're not dying of thirst in here, and that changes everything." I turned to Chloe. "Medically, building tap water in a still functional system, assuming the mains are running, what's the risk?" "Lower than dehydration, if we're actually running out of sealed water. The bigger concern would be bacterial contamination if the system has been sitting, but the Allegheny runs on continuous pressure, and this building looks new enough that the pipes aren't going to give you Legionella in the next 3 days. "Okay, so drinking tap is a last resort," but not a death sentence. Correct. Good. Water was off the critical list for now. I went back to the door and listened. The sounds at the hotel end of the bridge had changed. Earlier it was rhythmic pressing, bodies against glass, a kind of slow, persistent pressure. Now it was heavier. More bodies, I thought. The glass panel in that door was maybe a quarter-inch thick. I didn't know how many of them it would hold. I didn't know if the electromagnetic lock was designed to resist sustained pressure from multiple people. I'd never needed to know that before. I went back to my notebook and wrote, Priority 1, find alternative exit. Priority 2, maintain quiet. Priority 3, conserve water and food. Priority 4, communicate with hotel interior if possible. Then I added one more item that I didn't write down because I didn't want anyone to see it. Find Kelly. My daughter Kelly has worked the front desk at the Aldridge Grand for 3 years. She's 27. She's got her mother's stubbornness and her grandmother's ability to smile at someone while thinking exactly what she thinks of them, without revealing a single word of it. She's good at her job because she genuinely likes people, which is a trait she did not get from me. I don't worry about her as a rule. She's competent, and she's careful, and she's been navigating this hotel's particular brand of chaos since she was a teenager coming to visit me at work. She knows this building. But she was at the front desk when the lobby incident happened. The lobby was where the first infected person had apparently been, and I hadn't been able to reach her since Pete's radio call cut out. I had 1 bar of signal on my work phone. Not enough for calls, but enough, intermittently, for texts. I'd been sending them since noon. Kelly, it's Dad. I'm on the Skybridge. Are you okay? Kelly, please respond when you can. Kel, I'm fine. I have people with me. Are you somewhere safe? None of them showed delivered. I kept sending anyway. At around 2 in the afternoon, something changed at the convention center end of the bridge. I was at the door, ear against the frame, listening. The convention center hallway had been quiet since mid-morning, not empty. I'd caught movement through the glass twice, but distant movement, nothing close. Now I heard something different, footsteps, quick ones, and a voice, low and urgent, talking to someone else. I put my eye to the gap between the door and the frame. 2 people, a man and a woman, both in convention center staff uniforms, not hotel uniforms. The annex had its own staff. They were moving fast, and they were being careful. The woman had something in her hand, looked like a fire extinguisher. The man was checking behind them as they moved. I opened the door and said, quietly, "Hey, in here." They both froze. The woman raised the extinguisher. "Maintenance," I said. "Gary Whitfield, hotel maintenance. I'm not infected. There are 5 of us in here." They looked at each other. The woman, she told me later her name was Nadine Forsyth. She was assistant event coordinator for the convention center, lowered the extinguisher slightly. "The hallway's clear," she said. "How long have you been in there?" "Since 9:47 this morning. The bridge locked from both sides." She looked at the door behind her, then at the hall, then back at me. "The convention center is not clear. There were people at the conference who, it happened fast. We've been in a supply closet on the 4th floor." "How many of you were in the supply closet?" 4. A pause. 3 now. I understood what that meant without asking. "Come in," I said. "Both of you. Get inside." So now we were 7. The room was about 8 feet wide and 12 feet deep, and there were 7 people and 1 housekeeping cart inside it. It was tight in the way that being inside a closet with too many people is always tight. Elbows finding unexpected contact, having to turn sideways to let someone pass, someone always somehow being in the way of whatever you were trying to reach. But also there was the thing that happens when people are frightened together in close quarters. They start actually talking, not performing, not managing impressions. They just start being honest, because honest is the only thing that makes sense anymore. The man from the convention center was a lighting technician. He told me his name was Doug Pruitt, 42, married, kids in high school, in the North Hills. He'd been setting up lighting rigs for a conference session when it started. He'd heard screaming from the main hall and followed Nadine's lead without asking too many questions. which he said was the best decision he'd ever made. "What did you see?" I asked him. "Enough," he said. Nadine was quieter. She sat against the wall next to Bridget, and I noticed the two of them started talking almost immediately. The quiet, low conversation of people who recognize each other as the practical ones in a group. Martin Oakes had his novel out. He was reading it, or pretending to read it, which is its own kind of coping. Theo Fenwick was sitting with his knees pulled up, his back against the doorframe. He wasn't talking to anyone, but his eyes were open, and he was listening to everything. Chloe was doing something I found interesting. She was going through Bridget's cart supplies with a systematic attention to detail that reminded me of myself going through a tool inventory, picking things up, reading labels, setting them down in a slightly different order, not reorganizing for the sake of it, figuring out what she had. After about an hour, she pulled me aside again. "The disinfectant spray," she said, "and the rubber gloves. If anyone here is injured, even a small cut, anything that broke the skin before we got inside here, I need to know." I thought about that. You think someone might be infected. The incubation window from the presentation was unclear, but if someone was bitten or scratched before the lockdown, we need to ask. She nodded. I stood up and looked at the room. 7 people. I'd been watching all of them for the last few hours, and nobody had shown any signs of anything. But that didn't mean much if the incubation period was long. "I need everyone to listen for a second," I said. "Not a lecture. Just one question. Before you got onto this bridge or into the convention center, did anyone have physical contact with someone who was acting wrong? Did anyone get scratched or bitten or cut during any kind of struggle?" Silence. The kind that means people are deciding whether to tell the truth. Martin Oakes set his book down. He was looking at a spot on the floor. "Martin," I said. "It was nothing," he said. "Let me hear it." "In the lobby. This morning, before I crossed to the bridge. There was a man near the elevator. He grabbed my arm. Just grabbed it. I pulled away. He didn't bite me. He just grabbed my arm and I pulled away and I came up here. He tugged his sleeve up. His forearm had 3 distinct scratch marks where fingernails had dragged." Chloe moved before I finished processing it. She was beside Martin in 2 steps with the rubber gloves on. She looked at the scratches without touching them. "How deep?" I asked her. "Superficial. Skin broken, but barely." She looked at Martin. "Does it itch? Any heat in the tissue around it?" "It's fine," Martin said. "It's nothing." "That's not the question I asked." "A beat. It's a little warm, but that's probably just—" "We're going to watch it," Chloe said. She looked at me, and I read the thing she didn't say clearly enough. "Martin, I'm going to want to check it every few hours. That okay?" "Yes," he said. And then, quietly, "Am I going to—" "I don't know," Chloe said. "I'm going to be honest with you. The data doesn't exist yet for me to give you a number. What we're going to do is watch it and deal with whatever happens." Martin Oakes picked his book back up. He didn't read it. He sat there holding it, and I watched him not read it for a while. By Thursday evening, I had a plan. Well, a plan is maybe too strong a word. A plan implies confidence in outcomes. What I had was more like a sequence of problems I wanted to solve in a specific order, with the understanding that each problem would reveal 3 more problems behind it. Problem 1, the hotel door. The electromagnetic lock was responding to the hotel security system, which I could not reach from here. But electromagnetic locks have a failure mode, a power failure. If the building's power cut out, the EMLs were supposed to default to unlocked. It was a fire code thing. You can't trap people in locked rooms during an emergency. So a power failure would open both doors. But a power failure would also turn off our lights and our tap water if the building was on municipal supply pressure, which the Aldridge was. So power failure was a tool I'd save for when I had a specific need for it, not a general-purpose solution. Problem 2, getting news. We had 1 cell phone with 12% battery, Theo's, and 1 work phone with about 30%. Limited and getting less limited by the hour. I needed to be strategic about what we used them for. Problem 3, the storage room itself. 8 by 12, 7 people, one partially functional vent, pulling air from somewhere above the bridge's structural frame. The air was okay now. In 2 days, without any way to circulate fresh air, it would be less okay. And 7 people produce a substantial amount of body heat, moisture, and carbon dioxide. I needed to look at that vent. I got out my smaller flashlight, the pen light, and climbed onto one of the shelves to look at the ventilation grate in the ceiling. Standard 4 by 6 inch grate, 2 screws. I had a screwdriver. I had the screws out in about 30 seconds and pulled the grate free. Inside was a short duct, maybe 8 inches square, running up into the structural ceiling above the room. At the end of the visible section was a small fan, a duct fan, about 4 inches across, running on building electrical. It was what was pulling air through the room right now. But where was the air coming from? I shone the light and tried to trace the duct. It ran up, then angled, north, toward the hotel end of the bridge, which meant it was connected somewhere to the building's broader evac system. This was information I filed and didn't act on yet. But I kept thinking about that duct. 8 inches square. Too small for a person. I've seen people try to convince themselves they could fit in a ventilation duct, and usually they're wrong. But not too small for things I might need to move from one side of the bridge to the other. Not too small for a cable, or a rope, or, depending on configuration, a means of communicating with someone on the building's HVAC network. I put the grate back but didn't screw it in, just rested it in place. "What are you doing up there?" Theo asked. "Thinking," I said. "That's not a great answer." "No," I said. "It isn't. Thursday night was the hardest. Not because anything dramatic happened, because nothing happened. We split the space as best we could. But Chloe and Nadine against the left wall, which was the slightly warmer wall because of its proximity to the vent. Doug and Bridget against the right wall, Martin, Theo, and me, wherever we could make ourselves fit, which for me was the doorway, because I didn't sleep anyway. I sat in the doorway with my back against the frame and my legs extended into the bridge corridor, and I listened. The sounds from the hotel end of the bridge were continuous, not loud, not frantic. That was actually the worst part. They were steady. Rhythmic pressure against the glass panel in the steel door. Maybe 40, maybe 50 of them by the sound of it. A slow, constant wait. Not smart enough to look for another way in. Not exhausted enough to stop. Just there, applying presence, because that's what they did. From below, through the glass walls of the bridge, which were triple-paned and thick, good insulation, came the changed city sounds. No traffic. Occasional impact sounds, car or structure. Once, maybe around midnight, something that sounded like a gunshot, far away. Then nothing for a long time. I thought about Donna. She would be home. She would have seen the news by now, or she would have tried to call me, and when she couldn't reach me she would have... I stopped that line of thinking, because there was nothing productive at the end of it. Donna was practical. She would know I was in the building. She would wait. If things were bad enough that she needed to leave the house, she had her sister's place in Cranberry, 40 minutes north, out of the city core. She had gas in the car. She had sense. I made myself believe that and leave it alone. Kelly was different. Kelly was in the building, and my radio, which ran on the hotel's internal frequency, was still working, which meant the hotel's communication system was still running, which meant someone in the hotel still had power and still had authority over the system. And at approximately 2:14 in the morning, that someone came on. It wasn't Kelly. It was a voice I recognized but couldn't immediately place. A hotel administrative voice. The kind of measured professional calm that management uses when they're very scared but can't afford to show it. It said, "This is an announcement for all hotel staff and guests. The Aldridge Grand is currently under an emergency lockdown protocol. All guests and staff should remain in their current location. Do not attempt to move through the hotel. Security measures are in place for your protection. We appreciate your patience and will provide further updates as soon as possible." Then it repeated. Then it went off. I pressed transmit on my radio. "This is Gary Whitfield, Maintenance Supervisor, Sector 7. I'm on the North Skybridge. Does anyone copy?" Nothing. I tried 3 more times. Then I stopped, because I'd thought of something. The voice on the announcement. I'd been turning it over, trying to place it, and I got it about 10 minutes later. Not a manager. Not one of the usual announcement voices. Those were the guest services director or the GM. This voice was from the security department. And the only person in hotel security who I'd heard make announcements before was a man named Paul Drexler, the assistant security director, who I knew from 11 years of maintenance security coordination. Paul was a careful, methodical person who took rules seriously and himself slightly too seriously. Paul had locked the bridge from the security office. Paul was making announcements. Paul was, as far as I could tell, running the show inside the hotel. The question was, why had Paul locked the bridge when standard lockdown protocol was to seal only the lobby-level doors and the service entrances? The Skybridge was not in the standard lockdown protocol. I'd been in the emergency planning meetings. The Skybridge was a secondary exit route, not a primary security concern. Sealing it meant either the protocol had been modified, or someone had made a manual decision, or there was something on the bridge that they needed to keep out of the hotel. I sat with that for a while. At 3 in the morning, I heard something I'd been waiting for, without fully admitting I'd been waiting for it. My radio crackled, and a voice said, very quietly, "Dad?" I was so startled that I actually fumbled the radio. It hit the floor of the bridge with a sound that made me freeze, listening to the hotel door. The pressure sounds didn't change. They hadn't heard it. I grabbed the radio. Kelly, I'm here. I'm on the Skybridge." "I know." Her voice was low, controlled. She was somewhere that required quiet. "Pete told me before he lost his radio. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you okay? Where are you?" "Service corridor, 3rd floor. East wing. I've been here since the lobby." A pause. "I saw what happened in the lobby, Dad." "Are you hurt?" "No. There's 2 other people with me, housekeeper and a kitchen guy. We've been in the corridor for, what time is it?" "Just after 3 in the morning. 12 hours then." I heard her exhale slowly. "Okay. Are you safe where you are? Is the corridor accessible?" "We blocked the door from the lobby side. It's a heavy door, and the kitchen entrance is locked. We've been moving between. We found a break room on the 2nd floor service corridor. There's food. We've been eating." She paused. "Gary, something's wrong with the hotel. Not just the outbreak, something else." "Tell me." "Paul Drexler has the security office locked. He made announcements saying everyone should stay put. But I saw, from the service corridor windows, I can see into the main hotel stairwell. The security guards have been moving VIP guests to the upper floors, penthouse level, and they're bringing supplies with them. Food, water, everything from the hotel emergency stores." I stared at the dark bridge ahead of me. "How many guests are they moving?" "I don't know, maybe 20? The guests from the penthouse level, the ones who had the long-term bookings. And Paul Drexler's been talking on the phone. A landline, I think, because cell service is basically gone now. He's been talking to someone outside the hotel." "What do you mean, outside the hotel?" "I don't know who, but the conversation I could overhear. He said, 'The bridge is sealed.' And then he said, 'We can hold the upper floors. Like the rest of us don't matter.'" Her voice stayed level, but I could hear what was under it. "Dad, he trapped you on that bridge on purpose. He sealed it manually." I already knew it. Hearing it said plainly was different from knowing it. "Kelly, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't try to reach the Skybridge. Don't do anything that puts you in Drexler's sightline. I'm going to find a way to move through this building from my side. Can you check something for me?" "What?" "The service corridor you're in. Does it have access to the HVAC maintenance shafts?" A pause, and I could tell she was looking around. "There's a panel in the wall, a metal access panel. That's an HVAC maintenance panel. Those corridors are in every commercial building this size. They're not full size, more like half-height crawl spaces, but they run through the entire building. If I can get from my side of the bridge into the building's HVAC maintenance network, I can move through the hotel without going through any of the main corridors." "How do you know where they go?" "Because I've been in them. I've been in every inch of this building, Kelly. It's my job. Another pause. Okay, what do you need from me? Stay safe. Keep your radio close. I'll call you again when I know more. Dad? Yeah. The 3 scratches on Martin Oakes's arm. I went cold. How do you know about that? I don't. I'm guessing, because it matters. Watch it closely. Chloe's on it. Good. A beat. I love you. You too. Stay put. I spent the rest of the night not sleeping, which surprised no one, including me. When the gray light started coming through the bridge's glass walls, which put it around 6:30 Friday morning, the light making an appearance the way Pittsburgh November light does, reluctantly and without much enthusiasm, I had a list. What I knew: both bridge ends were locked by building security, at least one manually by Paul Drexler. The hotel's upper floors were being converted to a holdout position for a selected group of VIP guests and the security team. Kelly was alive and positioned in the East Wing service corridor. The convention center side of the bridge was probably accessible to Nadine and Doug if needed, but the convention center itself was compromised. The infected had gathered at the hotel end of the bridge in numbers I couldn't precisely estimate. Martin's scratches had been checked by Chloe at 5 in the morning. The redness was spreading. What I needed: a way into the building's havoc network from the bridge side, food and water that would last longer than 3 days, more information about the building's state, a plan for the next 48 hours. What I had: 22 years of knowledge about this building's infrastructure. I got up quietly. Most of the group was asleep, or in that half-asleep state that passes for rest when you're in a storage room with 6 other scared people. Bridget was awake. I'd suspected she'd been awake all night, and I was right. "Come with me," I said quietly. "Bring a flashlight." We stepped out into the bridge corridor, pulling the door mostly closed behind us. I led her south, toward the convention center end, keeping low and out of sight line of the hotel door. Not that the infected could understand sight lines or strategize around them, but I was trying to keep noise down, and movement near the glass could attract the ones below, if there were any who could see up this far. The bridge had a structural inspection port near the convention center end. I knew it was there because I'd used it twice, once for a waterproofing inspection, once for a cable management project. It was a hinged panel at floor level, about 18 inches by 24, designed for inspectors to access the bridge's underside structure. Not the underside of the bridge itself. We were above a 6-lane street, and I was not going down there, but the bridge's structural cavity, which ran below the walking surface and contained electrical runs, HEFIS conduit, and the fiber optic cabling for the bridge's environmental controls. More importantly, the cavity connected to the hotel building's structural wall at the north end. I'd been in that cavity before. It was uncomfortable. Low, dark, steel frame with fiberglass insulation bats between the structural members. Not a place you'd go by choice. But if the electrical runs connected to the building, the cable paths would connect too. And where cables went, maintenance access corridors usually weren't far behind. "The inspection port," I said to Bridget. She crouched with me and looked at the panel. Standard deck plate covering with 2 wing nut fasteners. I had the wing nuts off in 30 seconds. Inside was the structural cavity. About 14 inches of clearance between the bridge floor surface and the structural frame below. The electrical runs were visible on the south side. 2 conduit runs, 1 lighting, 1 power, running north toward the hotel, and between them, the evac conduit, a flex duct, 4 inches diameter, also running north. "That's not big enough to crawl through," Bridget said. "No, but it tells me where the access corridor is." I shone the light up the conduit's path. If this runs into the hotel's mechanical space, there's a maintenance corridor right beside it. The mechanical spaces in this building are on the 5th floor. That's the same level as the bridge. And the corridor runs all the way around the building's perimeter. "The corridor is in the hotel," she said. "How do we get from here into the corridor?" I sat back and thought about that. The bridge connected to the hotel at the 5th floor, floor level. The hotel door, the electromagnetic locked one, was a fire door in a load-bearing wall. Behind that wall, maybe 8 feet back, was the fifth-floor corridor that ran along the west side of the building and connected to the mechanical room. But I couldn't go through the wall. Or, I looked at the ceiling of the bridge. The bridge had a structural steel ceiling frame above the glass, same as the frame below. And the glass on the ceiling was not glass. The ceiling of the bridge was solid aluminum panel, with the structural frame exposed in the inspection cavity I'd just opened. I looked north, followed the line of the ceiling with my flashlight. At the hotel end, where the bridge connected to the building, the ceiling frame was bolted to the building's structural wall. And just below the ceiling frame, maybe 2 feet down from it, was the top of the fire door. Above the door, in the wall, there was a section of wall that was framed but not structural, the kind of lightweight framing that hotel renovations use to box in evac equipment. If that framing didn't go all the way to the structural deck, if there was a gap between the top of the wall framing and the structural ceiling, "Hold this," I said, and gave Bridget the light. I stood up and put my hands on the ceiling of the bridge. The ceiling here was the aluminum panel I'd noted. I walked north, pressing on the ceiling every few feet, listening for the change in resonance that would tell me when I was over a cavity versus over solid structure. I found it about 10 feet from the hotel door. Hollow. Definitely hollow. Something behind this panel. I went back for my flathead screwdriver. The aluminum ceiling panel was held by 4 Torx screws. I didn't have a Torx driver, but a flathead in a Torx drive head will get you some grip if you're patient and angry enough. I worked the first screw for about 4 minutes before it broke free. The second one was looser. Third and fourth went faster. The panel dropped down, and I caught it before it could clang. Behind it was a cavity, and in the cavity was something I hadn't expected but probably should have. The top of a drywall partition wall, with 6 inches of clear space between the drywall and the structural deck. 6 inches. I put my hand through and felt around. The cavity on the other side was larger, much larger. The cool air coming through it was mechanical room air, that specific smell of conditioned air and electrical equipment that I know as well as my own house. "I can get through," I said. Bridget looked at the gap, through 6 inches of, No, I need to go in through the cavity and come down on the other side. The drywall partition probably ends somewhere. I reached in further. The drywall cap was maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. On the other side, the cavity was dark, but I could feel that it opened up. I need something thin and rigid to probe with. Bridget produced, from her cart, the metal handle of the mop head. She'd unscrewed it from the mop head itself, without me asking. I took it and poked it into the cavity above the drywall. The handle went in about 2 feet before it stopped. Then I angled it down on the other side of the partition. It dropped. Open space, at least 3 feet of it, on the hotel side of the wall. I took my flashlight and shone it in at an angle. On the other side of the partition was the 5th-floor west side corridor. Empty. Doors to hotel rooms on the right side, the elevator lobby, visible at the far end, dim emergency lighting. No movement. I could get into that corridor, not through the drywall partition directly. It was only 6 inches of gap. But if I came up through the inspection port into the ceiling cavity and crossed above the wall, I looked at the inspection port again. The cavity below the bridge floor was 14 inches, not big enough for me. But above the bridge's ceiling, the space I'd just accessed, would be different. The bridge's structural ceiling frame, now with the panel removed, gave access to a larger cavity. I needed to know how large. I pulled myself up to see, and there it was. Not a crawl space exactly, more like a narrow attic, the space between the bridge's ceiling panels and its structural steel frame, maybe 22 inches of clearance, running the full length of the bridge. And at the north end, where the bridge met the hotel's structural wall, the cavity continued into the building's above ceiling space. 22 inches. I was not a small man. I was 54 years old. I was 6 feet even, and I had a maintenance worker's build. Not bulky, but solid across the shoulders. 22 inches was going to be a conversation. I dropped back down and looked at Bridget. "I can do it," I said. "You're not a small person," she said. "No, but I've been in worse spaces. and I need to get to the control room. If Drexler's running the security system from the main security office, I can override the lockdown from there, or at least get access to the hotel's communication system. What if Drexler objects? I'll deal with Drexler when I get there. I looked at the room where the others were sleeping. I need you to stay here and manage the group while I'm gone. You're the most capable person in that room besides Chloe. What about Martin? Watch him. Tell Chloe I said to check the scratches every 2 hours. If anything changes, I paused, because the thing I was about to say was something I'd been avoiding saying. If anything changes with Martin, you have to make sure everyone else stays safe. That's the priority. Okay? Bridget looked at me steadily for a moment. Okay, she said. And don't let anyone get within arm's reach of the hotel door, even if it seems like it's holding. Understood. I went back to the storage room and filled my pockets with what I needed. Both flashlights, my tools, the utility knife. The lighter Theo had given me when I asked for it, not explaining why. I drank half of one of the sealed water bottles and ate one granola bar, because I was going to need energy, and right now, we still had enough to afford it. I wrote in my notebook, gone into the building via ceiling cavity, north end. Back in 4 hours. If not back, stay put, and stay quiet. G. Then I left it where Bridget would find it, and went to pull myself up into the ceiling of the Skybridge. Getting into the ceiling cavity was harder than I made it sound. I'm 54. I'm 6 feet. I have a bad right shoulder from a fall I took off a ladder in 2019, and the ceiling of the Skybridge is 11 feet up. I needed something to stand on. Bridget's housekeeping cart, pushed under the access point, gave me enough height. I got my arms over the edge of the frame and pulled. My shoulder made its opinion known immediately. I ignored it. Inside the cavity, 22 inches of clearance over a ribbed steel deck, insulation bats between the structural members, electrical conduit running along the frame, gray insulation dust immediately, which I was going to be breathing, and no light except what I was bringing. I turned on the big flashlight, held it in my right hand, and started moving. Crawling in a 22-inch space above a glass bridge, 6 stories above a street where things were happening that I couldn't see and didn't need to see, moving toward a sealed door where things I couldn't think about were gathered. That was probably the least comfortable 20 minutes of my life up to that point. I got maybe 40 feet before I found the first real obstacle. A evac crossover. A rectangular duct crossing perpendicular to my path, about 8 inches high, running east to west. Not passable head first. I had to turn sideways, extend my right arm, pull with my left. My right shoulder was very clear about this maneuver. I kept going. The second obstacle was worse. A structural cross member, a steel H-beam crossing at mid-cavity, which dropped my clearance from 22 inches to about 14, for a span of maybe 3 feet. I had to go flat. I mean completely flat, face turned sideways, tools pressed against my chest, arms extended in front. I pushed with my feet and pulled with my fingertips and moved by fractions. The steel was cold. The insulation dust was in my nose and mouth. I kept going. When I got past the cross member, the sound changed. The mechanical hum of the bridge's systems gave way to a broader mechanical sound, the sound of a building. The Aldridge Grand has a particular mechanical sound in its upper floors. I know it the way I know the sound of my own car engine, and it was right there with me in the ceiling. I'd crossed the wall. I was in the building. The above-ceiling space opened up considerably on the hotel side, about 30 inches of clearance now, and the structural layout was familiar. 5th floor above ceiling access, which I'd been in twice for cable runs. I moved north and east, following the building's structural grid from memory, counting the bays by the cross members until I got to the bay that was directly over the 5th floor main corridor. I found an access panel in the ceiling, a standard ceiling tile in the grid that the maintenance team uses for above-ceiling access. I pushed it up and shifted it aside. Dark corridor below. Emergency lighting, dim. The smell of hotel air, carpet, recycled air. The particular mix of cleaning products and fabric softener that hotels smell like everywhere in the world. No infected. No one. I dropped down. Landing on a bad shoulder is a bad idea, but I had no alternative. I made it work and stood in the 5th floor corridor, listening. From somewhere above me, the upper floors, I could hear voices. Faint, not panicked. The organized sounds of people managing a situation, not running from one. That was the penthouse group. Drexler's VIPs. From the elevator lobby at the corridor's end. The elevator was not running, which was normal. In a lockdown, elevators default to parked. But the stairwell door was visible from here, and it was closed. From below, nothing. The 5th floor was below the penthouse holdout, and above whatever was happening in the lower lobby floors. It was quiet in the way that in-between spaces are quiet. The security office was on the 2nd floor. I needed a stairwell. I found the service stairwell, the one maintenance used, which opened from the service corridor, and took it down 3 flights, which put me on the 2nd floor. Checked the door before opening it. The 2nd floor corridor was dimmer than the 5th. The emergency lighting was the only light, and one of the units was flickering. The carpet stretched away in both directions, and I could see maybe 60 feet before the light gave out. I started toward the security office. It was at the end of the main corridor near the east elevator bank. I was about 30 feet from the security office door when I heard it. Shuffling. Behind me. I turned slowly. At the far end of the corridor, past the limit of the working emergency lighting, something was moving. Moving in the way I'd seen from the bridge. That wrong signal walk. That absence of purposeful direction. Coming toward the light. Coming toward me. I had seconds. I moved fast and quiet to the security office door. Tried the handle. Locked. Keypad with card reader. I had a master key card on my ring, but master key cards didn't typically override security office locks, which ran on a separate system. What did work on security office locks was the building master override code. I knew that code because I'd been in the security office about 100 times over 22 years, and at some point, Paul Drexler had trusted me enough to give it to me for after-hours access during maintenance. 4 digits. I punched them in. The lock released. I was inside. The security office was empty. Not abandoned. Occupied recently. 2 coffees on the desk, both still with warmth when I touched them. Monitors still live, showing feeds from the hotel's security cameras. The main control terminal on the desk, which I recognized. It was a NAPCO-based system with a custom hotel interface, and I'd been in this software before during emergency drill coordination. Drexler was not here. I sat at the terminal and started reading. The system log told me the story faster than I could have asked for it. At 9:31 a.m. Thursday, 16 minutes before I'd stepped onto the Skybridge, the lobby sensor array had triggered a biohazard alert. The system had automatically locked the main lobby doors. At 9:34, the infected individual in the lobby had progressed to the 2nd floor via the main stairwell. At 9:38, a second infected individual had been detected on the 3rd floor. The system's automatic response had been to lock the east and west fire doors on floors 2 and 3, which was the protocol. Then, at 9:41, 6 minutes before I got onto the bridge, Paul Drexler had logged into the terminal here and manually extended the lockdown protocol to include the 5th floor fire doors and, specifically, the Skybridge electromagnetic locks, both of them, north and south. I read that entry 3 times. The system log noted the override code used. It was Drexler's personal security override, not an automated protocol, a human decision. Below the lockdown entries, I found something else. Drexler had been logging communications. Not calls. He'd been making notes in the system's activity log, which was a thing I'd never seen anyone actually use before. They were brief. 9:51 a.m. Penthouse guests. 14 guests, 3 corporate accounts. Secured on floors 11 to 12. Security team on floor 12. Supplies from hotel emergency stores being relocated to floor 11 kitchen. 10:14 a.m. Outside contact made. City emergency management line still operational. Advised to maintain position. Await extraction. Extraction vehicle being organized. Timeline uncertain. Hold protocol. 12:30 p.m. Food service and housekeeping staff in lower floors unaccounted for. Not my priority. Priority is upper floor guests per corporate instruction. 2:15 p.m. Skybridge holding. Infected gathered at hotel side bridge door, Est, 40+. Bridge effectively contains outbreak spread from west side. Bridge will not be released until extraction is confirmed. I sat and read that last entry twice. Bridge effectively contains outbreak spread from west side. He'd sealed us onto the bridge, not just to protect the upper floors, but because a bridge full of infected gathered at one end was a useful barrier. We were a buffer. The infected were clustering at the hotel door because we were on the bridge, and they could hear us, and as long as they were pressed against the bridge door, they weren't flooding into the rest of the building through whatever path they'd been using. Paul Drexler had sealed us on the Skybridge to use us as bait. I sat with that for a while, the kind of sitting that doesn't involve much movement, where you're processing something that changes the shape of things around you. Then I pulled out my radio. "Kelly?" She answered in 10 seconds. "Dad, where are you?" "I'm in the security office on the second floor. I'm looking at the system terminal." A pause. "What does it say?" Drexler sealed the bridge manually. On purpose. I kept my voice level. He's been holding the upper floors for 14 VIP guests, using the bridge as a barrier. The infected are clustered at the hotel side bridge door because of us, and that's keeping them from flooding the upper floors. Silence on Kelly's end. "He's waiting for extraction," I said. "Outside contact, city emergency management," he says. "But the timeline is uncertain. He's essentially planning to let us stay on the bridge indefinitely. Can you override the lockdown from there?" "Yes." I was already looking at the screen. The lockdown override was 3 button presses away, but if I open the bridge doors, the infected at the hotel end flood in immediately. 40 or more of them, Kelly, into the building. And I don't know where you are in relation to. Service corridor, East Wing, 3rd floor. The infected are concentrated on floors 1 and 2, based on what I've been hearing. If they flood in from the 5th floor bridge door, they'll go down before they go up. Maybe. We don't know that. They follow sound and movement. If you make noise. Dad, are the people on the bridge okay? For now, we have a situation with one of the survivors. I stopped, because the door to the security office was opening. Paul Drexler was 51, tall, ex-military bearing that he'd carried into civilian life and never quite put down. He was in his security uniform, and he had a radio in his hand, and he stopped in the doorway and looked at me, with an expression that processed through surprise, and then moved directly to something harder. We looked at each other for a second. "Gary," he said. "Paul, how did you get in here? I know this building better than you do." I didn't move from the chair. "The log, Paul. I've been reading your activity log." He came in and closed the door behind him. He was being quiet, which I noted. "You were supposed to stay on the bridge," he said. "I was also supposed to not be used as human bait, to keep a bunch of infected people in one place." He sat down in the chair across the desk from me. I'd seen Drexler handle difficult situations before. A guest death in 2022, a staff assault complaint in 2020, and he'd always been composed. He was composed now, but there was something underneath it. "The corporate directive," he said. "The accounts on the upper floors. Do you know what those guests pay per year? What their contracts guarantee in terms of emergency protocols? I don't care. The hotel's insurance position, the liability exposure. Paul, there are 7 people on that bridge, and one of them may be infected, and they're running out of food and water, while 40 of those things try to get through a glass panel fire door, and my daughter is in the service corridor on the 3rd floor, and you have them trapped." He was quiet. "I'm going to release the lockdown," I said, "and you're going to help me do it in a way that doesn't kill everyone." Drexler looked at the floor for a moment. He was thinking, not refusing, thinking. And that told me something important. Under the corporate instruction justification, under the security professional's calm, he'd been sitting here in this office for 18 hours, knowing exactly what he'd done, and it had been working on him, the way things work on you when you know they're wrong. If you open the bridge doors, he said, the infected at the north door will flood into the hotel. There are already infected on floors 1 through 3. If you add 40 more. What's the infection state of floors 4 and 5? He hesitated. 4 appears clear. 5 is probably clear. The infected seem to have concentrated in the lower floors and are mostly massed around the lobby area and the restaurant. And floors 6 through 12? Secure. Security team on 12. VIP guests on 11. Staff quarantine on 9. A pause. There are 42 staff members on 9 who are not VIP guests. That surprised me. Staff on 9? I didn't abandon everyone. He said it quietly, like he was defending something he knew was indefensible. The staff I could account for, I moved to 9. Housekeeping, kitchen, front desk. Is my daughter on 9? She wasn't accounted for. She's in the East Wing service corridor on 3. She's been there since yesterday morning. I watched his face. You didn't know that? No, he said. I didn't. Okay, I turned back to the terminal. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to tell me the safest current exit from the building. You're going to tell me if the convention center side of the bridge is accessible, specifically the loading dock or service entrance at convention center level. And then I'm going to get 7 people, plus my daughter and the 2 people with her, out of this building. And the VIP guests? They can come too, but I'm not leaving anyone to wait for a rescue that may or may not come. I looked at him. The extraction vehicle. Did it come? A long pause. No, the city emergency management contact stopped responding at noon. I looked at the system log and confirmed it. The last entry was 12:30 p.m. Thursday. It was now early Friday morning. 16 hours of silence. There's no extraction coming, I said. He didn't argue. So you need a plan B, I said, and I have one. But I need your cooperation, your knowledge of the upper floors, and whatever supplies the VIP section has been hoarding. You ready to talk about that? Drexler looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'm going to be honest about Paul Drexler, because it would be easy to make him a straight villain, and he wasn't. He made a terrible decision in a moment of extreme pressure, when the rules he'd built his professional life around told him to prioritize certain guests over others. He did it because the rules told him to. He sat with it for 16 hours because he wasn't sure the rules were right. When I put the actual shape of it in front of him, not the corporate liability justification, but the physical reality of 7 people on a glass bridge with a dying infected man and 40 things pressing against the door, he made a different decision. That doesn't excuse it, but it means I could work with him, which was what I needed. He walked me through the hotel's current state while I looked at the security camera feeds on the monitor. Floors 1 and 2, heavily compromised. The lobby area was packed. I couldn't see exactly how many from the overhead camera, but it was in the dozens, maybe more. The restaurant on the second floor was the same. The infected moved in the aimless, clustering way I'd come to recognize, gathering in areas that had been dense with human activity, following residual scent trails, not organized, not purposeful, but numerous enough that the sheer mass of them was a barrier. Floor 3, partially compromised. A group of infected, maybe 8 or 10, were moving through the main corridor, but the service corridor where Kelly was hiding appeared clear on the service camera. Floor 4, apparently clear on camera, no movement visible. Floor 5, clear. The bridge was visible on the camera at the end of the corridor. The hotel side of the bridge was showing the infected piled against the door from behind, which was a strange camera angle, like watching something from the wrong side of a window. Floors 6 through 12, controlled. Staff on 9, VIP guests on 11 and 12 with the security team. The convention center side. The convention center loading dock, I said. Walk me through it. The loading dock is on the ground level of the convention center, accessed from the alley off 5th Avenue. It's a roll-up door, 8 feet by 12. What's the path from the Skybridge Convention Center end to the loading dock? He thought about it. Convention Center Annex hallway. South stairwell down 4 floors. Service corridor east to the loading dock. State of that path? Unknown. The convention center staff, The ones who weren't accounted for were last reported on the third-floor annex. I don't know the state of the stairwell or the loading dock. Two of the people on the bridge with me came from the convention center. They said the annex third floor was manageable if you were careful and quiet. They've been on the bridge since mid-morning. That's 12 hours ago. Things change. Yes, they do. I thought about the camera feeds. The convention center cameras. Can you pull the convention center cameras? He typed. A new set of feeds appeared. The convention center main hall. Bad. That huge event space with the high ceiling and the folding chairs. There were people in it who were not people anymore, and they were moving in the slow, aimless way. And there were enough of them that the folding chairs were knocked everywhere, creating a landscape of metal legs and plastic seats that the infected moved through with no apparent awareness of. The annex corridor. Better. One infected visible on the camera, near the elevator lobby, otherwise clear. The stairwell camera. The convention center service stairwell. Clear on every floor the camera covered. Loading dock. Dark. The camera was still running, but the dock area appeared empty. The roll-up door was down. Is the roll-up door operated electrically or manually? Both. Electric primary. Manual override chain. Manual override from the inside. Yes. Okay. I was starting to see a path. I radioed Bridget before I did anything else. Gary, she said immediately. Thank God, it's been 3 hours. I know. I'm sorry, how is everyone? Martin's arm. Her voice dropped. It's not good. The redness has spread to his elbow. He's running a fever. Chloe's estimate. Touching his forehead. He's still himself. Talking. Reading his book. But the progression is, how long does Chloe think? She said she doesn't know. She said it could be hours, or it could be longer. She's watching him. Okay, listen. I'm in the hotel security office. I've been through the building. I have a route. It goes through the convention center side to the loading dock. I need to get you off the bridge first. Once I have a clear path from the convention center stairwell to the dock, I'll come to the south bridge door and get you out. What about the north door? The infected on that side. I'm not opening the north door. We go south, convention center side. I paused. Tell Chloe to keep watching Martin, and be ready. It could be soon. Ready for what exactly? Moving. I looked at Drexler. We're moving everyone. All of them. Out through the convention center side and to the loading dock. How are we getting from the loading dock to anywhere safe? That was the part I didn't fully have yet. The answer to that came from an unexpected direction. Not from the security camera feeds, and not from Drexler's knowledge of the building. It came from a moment about an hour later when I was back up in the security office, looking at the camera feed for the convention center loading dock, and I noticed something. The building across the alley. Through the loading dock roll-up door's exterior camera, a small one mounted above the dock, I could see the building across Fifth Avenue's alley. It was a construction site. Had been for 2 years. A mixed-use high-rise under construction. Currently about 12 floors of structural steel and concrete, with no exterior cladding. A bare skeleton of a building, with construction equipment still parked around it, because 2 years ago when they were building it, there was no reason to move the equipment, and now there was presumably no one to move it, including a construction crane. Tower crane, the kind with a horizontal jib, currently parked with its jib extended roughly east-west. And on the east side of that building, the side facing the alley between it and the convention center, I could see, on what appeared to be the fourth-floor structural level, a temporary construction office trailer. The kind that construction sites park on elevated platforms, connected by a metal exterior staircase. And from that trailer, there was a light on. Not a generator light, a steady light, the kind that meant someone had a power source. I leaned forward and looked at that camera feed for a long time. Then I tried something I'd never have tried under other circumstances. I pulled up the security system's external PA. The Aldridge had external speakers for announcements during outdoor events, aimed toward the street and the alley, and keyed the mic. Anyone in the construction site across the alley from the convention center loading dock, this is Gary Whitfield, Hotel maintenance supervisor. I'm in the hotel. I've got survivors. I need to make contact. If you can hear me, respond on any frequency you have. I sat back and waited. 3 minutes later, my radio crackled. Not the hotel internal channel. A different frequency. The general emergency frequency that I had my radio dialed through, because I'd been scanning channels since yesterday morning. Hotel guy. A man's voice, rough, tired, with the specific cadence of someone who's been sitting in a stressful situation for a long time. This is Bobby Crane. Yeah, that's really my name. I've been hearing it all day. I'm a site foreman on the Mayor Birch construction project. Me and 3 of my crew have been up in the site office since yesterday morning. Are you people actually still in the hotel? Some of us are on the Skybridge. Some are in the hotel. We have a route to the convention center loading dock. What's the state of the alley between your site and the convention center? A pause. We've been watching from up here. Alley's been clear since last night. The infected. They're all moving towards sound and light. The alley's a dead end, and it's dark, so they stay on the main streets mostly. There were 3 or 4 wandering in the alley earlier, but they moved off. Your crane, I said. What about it? Your tower crane. Is it operational? Another pause. Longer. It should be. We left it in operating condition when it went sideways. Generators running for the site office. The crane runs off site power, which is connected to the generator. What's the reach of the jib? 200 feet radius from the mast. I looked at the screen. The convention center's flat roof, the annex section, was visible from the crane camera if I could figure out roughly where the mast was. The crane's jib extended east. The convention center roof was east of the construction site. Bobby, can your crane reach the convention center roof? A very long pause. Are you asking me what I think you're asking me? I need a bridge, I said. Not the Skybridge. A new one. Something that goes from your building to the convention center roof, or close to it, that people can cross. I can't. The crane is a lifting device, not... What do you have on site? What materials? Bobby was quiet for a moment. I heard him talking to someone else. Muffled words. Then, we've got steel deck panels. We were doing the 4th floor deck pour when it all went wrong. There are panels in the lifting frame, ready for the pour. 12-foot by 3-foot panels, pre-assembled. How much do they weigh? Maybe 400, 500 pounds each assembled. And the crane could place them. The crane could place them, sure, if I was placing them on a prepared surface at a construction site. What you're describing is, Bobby, I have 8 people who need to get out of this building. The convention center's 4th floor annex roof is a flat concrete surface. What you're describing is the only way I've got. A pause. Then, slowly, what's the height difference? I'd have to calculate it from the building specs. Roughly, the convention center annex is 4 floors, so maybe 48 feet from grade. Your 4th floor level on the construction site. We're at 42 feet to deck. Close enough that I could compensate with the boom angle. I heard him moving, maybe walking somewhere on the site. Gary, the annex roof. Is there anything to brace against? The panels have to land on something stable. The annex roof has a parapet wall, maybe 18 inches high. And there are HVAC units on the roof that are anchored. Those would be good anchor points. And on our side, I can land them against the 4th floor perimeter beam. It's exposed steel, got bolts on it. He was quiet for a moment. This is insane. I know. But you've got 8 people and no other way. 9, I said. My daughter is in the hotel. 9 people. I heard him breathe out. Okay, you better move fast. The generator's been running since yesterday, and I don't know how much fuel is left. I want to tell you what the next 8 hours were like in full, because they deserve to be told in full. But I also know that a lot of what happened was not dramatic in the way that would make a good story. A lot of it was logistics, timing, the specific, practical challenge of moving 9 frightened people through a partially compromised building while trying to stay quiet and fast and organized. And I know the logistics are what kept us alive, so I'm not going to skip them. First thing, getting Kelly and her 2 companions to a rendezvous point. I went back up through the service stairwell to the 3rd floor, Found the East Wing service corridor by working from my knowledge of the building's layout. I've been in every service corridor in this building, and they run in a predictable grid. Kelly was where she'd said she was, in a break room off the main service corridor, with a housekeeper named Vicky Dawson and a kitchen prep worker named Nathan Hoyle who had a cut on his face that he'd gotten from flying debris in the kitchen, not from an infected person. Chloe checked it later and confirmed. Kelly looked like she'd spent a day and a night in a break room with 2 other scared people, which is exactly what she'd done. She had dark circles, and her hotel blazer had a smear of something on the lapel that I didn't ask about. When she saw me, she just grabbed my arm, once, briefly, and then she let go. "How are we getting out?" she said. "Down through the convention center annex and across the loading dock alley. And from the alley? Up." She looked at me. What does that mean? Trust me, I'd always been able to say that to Kelly and have it work. Maybe because she'd seen me fix enough things in her life that she'd generalized the trust. It still worked. She nodded. We got Vicky and Nathan and made our way to the convention center annex hallway, which connected from the 4th floor of the hotel to the 4th floor of the annex. The annex was the smaller structure, 4 floors, connected to the main convention center by an internal corridor on each floor. The hotel connected to the annex at the 4th floor via an interior bridge, not the main Skybridge, a smaller connector that was a normal hallway with no electromagnetic locks, just a standard fire door. That fire door was not part of Drexler's lockdown protocol, because it was an interior connection at the 4th floor, not an external exit. I opened it with my master key. The annex 4th floor corridor, empty. The one infected that had been visible on the camera earlier was not here now. It had moved, probably towards sound from somewhere else. We moved quickly. The annex stairwell was in the center of the building, and we took it down 1 floor to the 3rd, which was where the annex connected to the main convention center's 3rd floor. I looked through the window in the stairwell fire door before opening it. The convention center 3rd floor was not empty. There were 4 of them in the corridor I could see, moving in their particular way, not walking exactly, more like drifting with intention, the way a current moves things in a river. They weren't looking at the stairwell door, but they were in the path we needed to take. I thought about the path. We didn't need to go through the 3rd floor. We could stay in the stairwell all the way to the ground floor and come out at the service level. Service level? That was 1 floor below ground on this end, because the convention center was built into a grade that sloped. The loading dock was at service level. I motioned everyone down. Service level. The stairwell door opened into a loading area. Concrete floors, exposed ceiling, a line of electrical panels on the wall, 2 forklifts parked at the far end, and the roll-up loading dock door, a big red one with a manual chain on one side. No infected. The camera had shown it clear, and it was clear. "Stay here," I said to Kelly, Nathan, Vicky. "Quiet. I'll be back." I went back up to the 4th floor and got to the annex roof access, a steel fire door at the top of the stairwell, marked roof access, authorized personnel. My master key opened it. The convention center annex roof, flat concrete, gravel ballast, HVAC units anchored in a row, parapet wall about 20 inches high all around. Cold, November cold, wind from the river, overcast sky that was lightening now toward what might eventually be a gray dawn. The view from up here was not something I was ready for. I looked at it anyway. Downtown Pittsburgh was not what I expected disaster to look like. There were no flames, or only a few, small ones far east. The streets below were not filled with running people. They were filled with a different kind of movement, dense and slow and constant in some places, nearly empty in others. The specific geography of a city that has been reorganized by something that doesn't understand geography. I could see Charter Street from here. I didn't let myself look too long. I looked east. The construction site was right there, maybe 200 feet across a gap that went down to the alley below. The bare steel skeleton of a building rising to 12 floors, and at the 4th floor level, the site office trailer with its light on. I could see movement up there. People. I keyed my radio. Bobby, I'm on the convention center annex roof. I can see you, he said. I see your site. What's the crane status? Ready. I ran it through the pre-op check this morning. Everything's functional. A pause. Gary, the deck panels I mentioned. The problem is they're on the 4th floor deck of our side. For me to pick one and place it on your roof, the boom angle is going to be acute. I can do it, but the placement won't be precise. Give me a landmark. I looked at the HVAC units. The nearest one to the east-facing parapet wall was about 6 feet from the wall. There's an HVAC unit 6 feet from the east parapet. I want you to aim for the parapet wall, with the panel bridging between your 4th floor perimeter beam and our parapet. That's a 70-foot gap, more or less. The panels are 12 feet. You'll need to extend with 2 panels end to end. End to end, they'd be 24 feet combined, not 70. I'd thought about this. I don't need them to reach all the way across. I need them to reach from your perimeter beam to a point where people can drop to the parapet wall and then to the roof. How high is your 4th floor deck relative to our parapet wall? Bobby checked something. We're about 6 feet higher. So if you put the panels extending from your beam, at our end they'd overhang the parapet by, with a 70-foot gap at a slight angle. The end of the panels would be maybe 15 feet above your deck level, but only... I was doing structural math in my head, which I was capable of, but not quickly. Give me a second. I thought about the crane geometry. Tower crane, jib at 200-foot radius. The jib was horizontal, the cable was vertical. To pick a panel from the 4th floor deck and swing it out over a 70-foot gap and lower it onto the parapet wall, the tip of the panel would be at whatever height I set the bottom of the pick, minus the drop angle over the gap. If I could get the panel to rest on both the perimeter beam of the construction site and the parapet of the annex roof, it would be a ramp, a steep ramp, about 6 feet of elevation change over a horizontal distance of, I thought about it, maybe 40 feet of actual panel contact, an angle of about 8 degrees. Steep but walkable if you had something to hold. Bobby, what else do you have on site? Cable, rope, anything long? We've got rigging cable, standard crane rigging, and we've got come-along straps, the synthetic ones, in the equipment shed. How many come-alongs? I'd have to check. Maybe 8, 10? Hook them end to end. That's a lifeline. Can you attach it to the top panel? Rig it to the panel. Yeah. You'd pull it tight on your end and hold it. That's the handrail, I said. Another pause. Gary, you're a hotel maintenance guy. I've been saying that for 22 years, and nobody's ever taken it seriously. He laughed. Once, short and surprised. Give me 20 minutes to rig the panels. I'll get the people. Getting everyone from the storage room on the Skybridge to the convention center loading dock, that was the part that required Paul Drexler. Here's what I hadn't solved yet. The 7 people on the bridge couldn't get off the bridge without opening one of the locked ends. The convention center end was the one I needed open, and it was the safer one. The infected were on the hotel end, not the convention center end, and the convention center 4th floor was currently clear. But the convention center side of the Skybridge lock was also on the hotel security system, which meant releasing it from the security terminal. I'd been at that terminal. I could release it remotely, but releasing it might make a sound. The electromagnetic lock click was audible, and in a building with infected in the lower floors, audible events were things to avoid. More importantly, if I released the lock, I needed to be at the convention center end of the bridge to get everyone out, not in the security office, and from there I couldn't keep monitoring the situation. Drexler was the answer to this. I'd left him in the security office and given him a very specific instruction. When I radio you, you release the convention center bridge lock, not the hotel lock, only the convention center side. Do you understand? Yes, he said. And Paul, you and the VIP guests, and the security team. You come down to the convention center annex as well. Same route. I know you have supplies up there. Bring what you can carry. But you come down. He didn't argue, which told me everything about his state of mind after 18 hours. So the sequence was, I get to the convention center 4th floor connector first. I check the annex corridor is clear. I radio Drexler. Drexler releases the bridge lock. People on the bridge come through into the annex corridor. I lead them up to the roof. Meanwhile, Bobby's crew is placing the panels. Meanwhile, Kelly and Nathan and Vicky are waiting at the loading dock service level. I still had one problem, and I'd been trying not to think about it directly, but I had to now. Martin. Chloe's last check on Martin had been an hour ago. The scratches had progressed. The redness was at his shoulder now. He was feverish. He was still coherent. He was still reading his novel. At some point, Martin Oakes was going to stop being Martin Oakes. Chloe and I had talked about this before I went into the building. Quietly, briefly, the way you talk about a thing you can't avoid anymore. How will I know when? I'd started. You'll know, she'd said. The fever spikes. He becomes confused. And then, she stopped. There won't be a slow transition that looks like sleep. It's more abrupt than that. How long do we have? Based on the progression rate, I'd say less than 3 hours from this point. Maybe less. I'd nodded, and not said anything else. But now I was looking at a 40-minute timeline, and I was thinking about Martin and what I was going to do when the timeline and Martin's progression came to a point at the same time. I thought about that while I moved through the annex to position. There wasn't a good answer. The answer was that Chloe would tell me when the moment came, and when it came, we would have to make a decision about Martin that I didn't want to think about in advance, because thinking about it in advance made it worse without making it clearer. I got to the annex 4th floor corridor, checked it, clear. I walked to the Skybridge Convention Center door and looked through the glass panel. I could see the storage room about 60 feet away down the bridge. The door was closed. Beyond it, at the hotel end, the back of the infected pressing against the hotel door was visible. I could see them from this end, and the sight of that many bodies pressing against the door, the slow, persistent pressure of them, the way they didn't get tired. I pulled my eyes back to the storage room. Bridget had seen me through the glass panel. She was at the door gap, watching me. I held up my radio. She disappeared. A moment later, her voice on the radio, quiet. We're ready. Martin? The same, he knows. He knows. I pressed transmit. Drexler, release the convention center bridge lock, now. Across the bridge, the muffled chunk of the electromagnetic lock releasing. The door in front of me swung slightly open. Just slightly. The weight of it balanced on its hinges, unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped onto the Skybridge. The noise of the infected at the far end changed immediately. Without the solid door between us, I could hear them clearly for the first time since the beginning. And I'm not going to describe that sound except to say that it was the sound of a city that had changed into something else, and it was coming through 120 feet of glass bridge, and it was very clear. I kept moving, fast and quiet. At the storage room, Bridget had the door open. 7 people, the original 5 plus Nadine and Doug, were pressed close together in the dim room. I looked at Martin. He was standing. He had his novel in his hand. He was looking at me with eyes that were clear, for now, and his face was very pale. Gary, he said. Martin, we're moving. Right now. Can you walk? Yes, he said. I can walk. Then walk. Stay with the group. Don't fall behind. I looked at Chloe. She gave me a small nod that told me he was still himself, and she would tell me if that changed. We moved. Chloe was right behind me. Then Bridget. Then Martin, then Theo, then Nadine and Doug. I looked back once. They were all moving, quiet, fast, following me with the faith that frightened people have in someone who seems to know what they're doing. The infected at the hotel door heard us, or smelled us, or felt the vibration of our footsteps through the floor frame. The pressure against the hotel door intensified. I could see the glass panel flexing slightly under the mass of them, but the door held. We made it to the convention center end and through. 60 seconds on the bridge. That's how long it took. 60 seconds that felt like a different kind of time, the kind that stretches and thins at the edges. Through the door, into the annex corridor, and I pulled the door shut behind me. The electromagnetic lock had released. It wouldn't auto-lock again without the security override. But I put a door wedge from my belt under it anyway. Old habit. Up the stairs, I said. 4th floor, roof access. Move. They moved. I was the last one up the stairs, listening to the building's sounds as I went. From somewhere below, the 2nd or 3rd floor, there were sounds of movement, the kind that meant the infected had drifted this way. Not close yet, but not nothing. We came out onto the annex roof into November air that was shockingly cold after the recycled warmth of the building. Everyone stopped for half a second, adjusting to the openness of it. The gray sky overhead, the city spread around them, the sounds of what the city had become drifting up from the streets. Don't look down, I said. Look east, that building. They looked at the construction site skeleton 40 feet below and across the alley. Bobby's voice on the radio. Gary, first panel is positioned. It's on your parapet wall on the north end, maybe 8 feet from the northeast corner. I went to the northeast corner of the roof. The panel was there, a steel deck panel, 3 feet wide, about 12 feet long, one end resting on our parapet wall, and the other end tilting upward and away toward the construction site's 4th floor perimeter beam. It made a ramp, steep but manageable, and attached to it, running up and back toward the construction site and anchored to the perimeter beam, was a line of yellow synthetic come-along straps hooked end to end. A lifeline, as I'd described it. It stretched tight and had some give, not rigid, but something to hold. The sight of it stopped everyone. It was not, to put it plainly, a reassuring structure. It was 2 pieces of industrial steel deck panel, rigged end to end on a crane, and set between 2 buildings, with a drop of 60-some feet to the alley below, and a yellow strap as the only handhold. That's how we're getting across? Theo said. Yes. It holds 400 pounds without blinking, and you weigh maybe 160. You go on your belly if you're scared. Hands and knees. Hold the strap. Don't look down. I looked at him. Theo, you've been calmer than anyone I expected. I need you to go first. He stared at me. Why first? Because if you go first, it shows everyone else it holds, and you're the youngest and the lightest and the fastest. He stared at the panel, then at me. Then at the panel, then he nodded and went to the parapet. He went on his hands and knees, grabbed the strap and moved. It took him about 90 seconds to get across. I watched every second of it. The panel flexed slightly under him, a sound like a soft bell tone as the steel took weight. The strap held. He reached the perimeter beam, and Bobby's crew was there to grab his arms and pull him the last 2 feet. He stood up on their deck and looked back at us, and he let out a sound that wasn't quite a word. Go, I said to Nadine. She went, then Doug. Bridget handed me her cart through the roof door before she went across. All the supplies, she said. I'm not leaving them. I'll bring it. She went. I started sorting the cart fast, moving things into my belt pockets, and a canvas bag I found attached to the bottom of the cart. I filled it. All the sealed food, the remaining water, the first aid kit, the disinfectant. Left the cleaning bottles and the mop head. Shouldered the bag. Chloe was standing at the parapet. Martin was beside her. Martin, she said quietly, can you go next? He looked at the ramp. He looked at his arm, the right arm, where the scratches were, which he'd been holding slightly away from his body all morning. He looked at Chloe. Am I still? He said. Yes, she said. You're still you. Go. He went. Slower than the others, more deliberate, but he went. He got halfway across and stopped moving, and for one terrible second I thought we'd lost him right there on the panel, but then he started moving again. Made it to the far side. Bobby's crew took his arms. Chloe went next. Then I looked around the roof. I needed to get down to the service level and get Kelly and Nathan and Vicky up here. I'd been thinking about the route. They couldn't come up the same stairwell because I wasn't sure how much longer the lower floors would stay clear, and the sounds from below were getting more distinct. What I needed was my radio. Kelly, can you hear me? Right here. You still at the loading dock? Yes. The roll-up door. The manual override chain. Can you open it from the inside? Nathan's already looking at it. A pause and some muffled talking. He says yes, the chain is accessible. Open it about halfway, then come up the service stairs to the 4th floor and across to the annex. The annex door to the 4th floor corridor is... I gave her the number. I know this building, Dad. I'll find it. Move fast. There's sound from the lower floors. Moving. I waited on the roof. Bobby had moved his crane to angle slightly south for the next round. There was another panel ready, this time positioned to create a more centered crossing point, slightly lower angle. He'd been adjusting while people crossed. Kelly came through the roof access door 9 minutes later with Nathan and Vicky behind her. She came out onto the roof and looked at the ramp and the yellow strap and the drop below. "Oh, Dad," she said. "I know. You built this." "Bobby built this?" I just asked. I gestured at the ramp. Vicky first, then Nathan. They went. Kelly watched them, and I watched the door behind us, because the sounds in the building were getting closer, and I wanted to be off this roof before they reached the stairwell. "Your turn," I said to Kelly. She went to the parapet. She put her hands on the strap. She looked back at me once, just once, and then she went. I waited until she was halfway across before I went to the parapet. I looked back at the annex roof. The door behind us was still closed, but the handle was moving. I went. The panel was cold steel under my palms, and the wind was steady from the river, and the drop below me was exactly as far as I'd known it was, and I did not look at it. I held the strap with both hands and moved, and the panel flexed under me with the soft bell-tone sound of stressed steel finding its balance, and I kept moving. Halfway across, the hotel behind me made a sound. Not from the bridge. From the hotel itself, the glass face of the Aldridge Grand. A sound of breaking, high up, somewhere on the upper floors. Glass, and then a deeper sound, structural. Something had let go somewhere in there. I kept moving. 3/4 of the way, Bobby's crew were visible on the other side, watching. One of them, young guy, construction hard hat, holding his hand out. I grabbed it when I got close enough and he pulled, and I came off the panel and onto the 4th floor deck of the unfinished building, and I stood up and didn't look at the drop I'd just crossed over. Everyone was there. 7 from the bridge, 3 from the service corridor, me. 11 people, plus Bobby and his 3 crew members. 15 people standing on the bare concrete deck of an unfinished building, looking at the Aldridge Grand Hotel across a gap that we had just crossed on a pair of steel deck panels and a line of yellow straps. The hotel was still standing. It was going to keep standing, probably. Buildings don't fall fast. But something on the upper floors had broken, and the sound from within it was a kind of continuous low ambient sound now. The sound of a building being occupied by something that didn't know how to occupy buildings. Martin Oakes was sitting on the concrete with his back against a perimeter column. His novel was still in his hand. He was breathing. Chloe sat down next to him and checked his arm without saying anything. I looked at Bobby Crane, who was shorter than I'd imagined from his radio voice, with a red beard and the weathered face of someone who spent his professional life outdoors in Pittsburgh weather. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me," he said. "Thank the crane." He paused. "Your people need water and food." "I've got some." I set the canvas bag down. "Not enough for everyone for long." "We've been here since yesterday morning," Bobby said. "We had the site supply shed, emergency rations, water jugs. It's not gourmet, but it's good," I said. "That's good." I sat down on the concrete. The November wind came off the river, and I let it come. 15 people on an unfinished building in a changed city on a Friday morning, and all of us alive. That was the state of things. I thought about everything I hadn't said yet and chose one thing to address. "Martin," I said. He looked up. "How are you feeling?" He thought about it. "Strange," he said. "Warm, like the start of a flu." He paused. "Not." He stopped. "Not different?" I said. "In the way that would matter?" "Not yet," he said. "Chloe's been monitoring." "I know." I looked at Chloe. She caught my eye and gave a small shake of her head that meant, "Not yet, but watching." Bridget appeared beside me with a granola bar and a water bottle cap's worth of water. Just appeared, in the way Bridget always appeared when you needed something, silently and completely. "Eat," she said. I ate. We were on the construction site for 4 days before we moved again. I'll tell you about those 4 days not because they were dramatic, most of them weren't, but because what happened in them was the actual survival story, the one that isn't about cranes and glass bridges and electromagnetic locks. It's about what 14 people and a foreman do when they're on a bare concrete building in November, with limited supplies and an indeterminate situation outside. Day 1, Friday, was mostly processing. Bobby's crew had a propane camp stove in the site office, which was an actual shed rather than a trailer, bolted to the 4th floor deck. Small but enclosed and out of the wind. 13 adults crowded into a space meant for 6 construction workers and their paperwork. And we did what you do in that situation. We got organized and we took stock. Bobby's supplies. 6 5-gallon water jugs, mostly full. A 24-count case of energy bars. 2 bags of beef jerky. A large container of instant coffee. First aid kit, better stocked than ours. 2 battery-powered lanterns. 1 hand-cranked radio. A set of walkie-talkies tuned to the emergency frequency. And the generator, which was powering the lights and the crane. Bobby estimated 30 hours of fuel remaining. Our supplies from the hotel, the canvas bag contents. Drexler's group had brought 2 hotel kit emergency bags from the upper floor stores, which contained water purification tablets, energy bars, granola packets, and some basic medical supplies. Combined and rationed across 15 people, probably 10 to 12 days of food at 2 small meals per day. Water, with the jugs and purification tablets for rainwater collection. The roof had drainage gutters, was manageable for longer. The roof was exposed and cold, but below the 4th floor deck, there were enclosed concrete stairwells and a partially constructed mechanical floor that was out of the wind and not actually that cold. Concrete holds temperature, and November hadn't gotten below 28 yet. Drexler's VIP guests, 14 of them, ranging from a tech company executive to a family of 3 who'd been at the hotel for a conference, were mostly quiet the first day. People in shock process it differently. Some of them sat in corners. One woman cried continuously for about 3 hours, and then stopped and was fine. One man, corporate type, name was Howard Birch, and yes, he was connected to the Mayor Birch construction company, and he couldn't stop being ironic about the fact that he was sheltering in his own construction site, immediately started asking about legal liability, which everyone ignored with the practiced patience of people who understood the question came from terror. The security guards from Drexler's team were actually useful. 2 of them, Wes and Cal, were ex-police and had been trained for emergency situations. Cal had kept a map of downtown Pittsburgh in his head from his patrol years and helped us think about geography, which areas would have concentrated infected populations, which routes were likely clearest, whether there were any still operational police or emergency positions in the city. The hand-cranked radio picked up emergency broadcast, intermittent, FEMA, or something using the FEMA frequencies, broadcasting shelter-in-place instructions that had clearly been recorded before things got this bad and hadn't been updated. But mixed in with the recorded messages, twice on Friday, was a live human voice giving updates. What it said was not comforting, but it was information. The outbreak was widespread, not just Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Columbus, Chicago, and at least 3 cities in Ohio and Michigan. Containment had failed in the urban cores. National Guard had been deployed, but was overwhelmed in most major cities. Safe zones were being established at designated sites. The voice named one in Pittsburgh. Allegheny County Airport, north of the city, is being established as a secure shelter and medical station. All survivors in the Pittsburgh metro area who can safely travel are advised to make their way north on Route 19 or Interstate 79. Allegheny County Airport was about 12 miles north of where we were standing. 12 miles. I looked out at the city from the 4th floor deck. 12 miles of Pittsburgh in November, on foot, with 15 people, including Martin. Martin was the thing I hadn't fully faced. By Friday evening, the fever had climbed. Chloe was giving him Tylenol from our combined supply. It was helping keep the temperature down but not breaking it. He was still coherent. He was eating small amounts and drinking water. He was talking to people, mostly to Theo, who'd attached himself to Martin in the way that young people sometimes attach to people who are visibly in trouble, a kind of solidarity born from shared fear. Theo sat with Martin through most of Friday afternoon, and they talked. I don't know what they talked about, because I kept my distance, giving Martin the privacy of not being watched constantly by the person in charge. Friday night, Chloe came to me. It was dark on the deck, lanterns low to conserve battery, and she pulled me aside to the edge of the stairwell. "Gary, tell me. His temperature is 103.4. That's as high as my ability to monitor gets. I'm doing it by feel and comparison. He's confused about some things. Small things. He asked me twice where his meeting was. He was a business traveler. He had a meeting. I know, but he'd asked me the same question before and accepted my answer. He's asking again, like the first time." A pause. He hasn't become violent. He's not aggressive. He's confused, and he's feverish, and he's still taking water when I offer it. "How long, Chloe? Your best estimate. I don't think he'll cross all the way tonight. His progression has been slower than the lobby presentation I saw, which might mean the transmission was incomplete, or might mean individual variation. I think he has another 12 to 16 hours of being mostly Martin. After that, I genuinely don't know. When he changes..." "I know," she said. "I need you to tell me immediately, not after, the moment you see it starting. I will. And the others need to know. Not the how to handle part, just that they should stay back from him and not be alone with him." She nodded. She'd already been doing this quietly, I realized, positioning herself between Martin and the group in casual-seeming ways. "You're good at this," I said. "I've been a trauma nurse for 8 years, she said. "I've managed worse." "I thought about that, have you?" She thought about it honestly. In terms of pure fear and body count, honestly? Not really. But in terms of keeping calm in a broken room and making decisions that aren't good options, just less bad ones. She shrugged. "Every shift." Saturday morning, I took Bobby Crane and Wes Auer, one of the ex-police security guards, and we did a careful ground-level assessment of the alley and the immediate block. This was not a casual decision. Ground level was where the infected were. But we needed information that the fourth-floor view couldn't give us, and I was thinking about the 12-mile route north. We went down the construction site's interior stairwell, unfinished, bare concrete, no lights, which we handled with flashlights. Ground level was a construction site staging area, fenced with chain link. The fence was intact. Through the fence, the alley, empty. The infected in this area had moved towards sound from somewhere to the south overnight. The sounds from the hotel, which was visible from the alley end, had been significant, which probably meant the hotel had drawn them. We went as far as the alley's exit to the main street, looked, and came back. The main street had maybe 20 infected visible, moving in the scattered way, not gathered. Not an impassable number for a careful small group, but not nothing. I had a longer view. We weren't trying to get through 20 infected on a city street. We were trying to get 12 miles north to an airport. "Vehicle," I said. Bobby nodded immediately. Wes nodded. Vehicles were the question. Getting 12 miles on foot with 15 people was a significant problem. Getting 12 miles in 1 or 2 vehicles was a different problem. Manageable roads, speed to outpace the scattered infected, ability to carry supplies. But finding vehicles near a downtown construction site was not obvious. Bobby solved this one for us. "We've got the site," he said. "The equipment lot. We've got a site foreman's pickup. Mine, parked in the lot on the 5th Avenue side. And there's a 12-passenger van, the one we used to shuttle the crew. It's been sitting there since Thursday morning. State of the lot. Fenced, same chain link. East side of the site. The gate needs a key, and the key is in my office. Infected in the lot. I haven't looked, but the lot's enclosed, and there's no reason for them to be in there." It took 2 hours to confirm the lot was clear. recover the keys from the site office, and assess the vehicles. Bobby's truck was a late-model F-350. The crew van was a Ford Transit. Both were in the lot, untouched. Both had partial tanks. Bobby's truck was 3/4 full. The Transit showed just over half. We needed more fuel. An F-350 at full load. Let's say 8 passengers in the truck bed plus 2 cab. And a Transit at full load, running through a potentially congested 12-mile route in a city, could cover the distance on current fuel without trouble. But I wasn't thinking about just the 12 miles. I was thinking about what came after. There was a gas station 2 blocks north on Charter Street. I didn't know what state it was in, but checking it was on the list for our departure run. I went back to the group and told them what we had. Saturday became a preparation day. We organized supplies into portable loads. Everyone carried something, weight distributed by ability. Bobby's crew transferred the water jugs and bulk food supplies to the van. Chloe organized a field medical kit from everything we'd pooled. Drexler helped without being asked, which I noted. He was working as a member of the group now, not as someone managing it. And that was a different version of him than the one who'd been on the other end of that radio log. I sat with Kelly for a while that afternoon. We sat on the concrete in the stairwell, where it was out of the wind, and I didn't ask her what she'd seen in the lobby on Thursday, and she didn't tell me, and we sat for maybe 20 minutes, not saying much. "How's Donna?" she asked. I haven't been able to reach her. Last time I tried, the cell network was, "She'll be at Aunt Karen's," Kelly said. "She's practical." That's what I keep telling myself. She is, though. She's actually more practical than you. I know. Kelly picked up a piece of construction aggregate, a small chunk of concrete, and turned it over in her hands. What was it like? On the bridge? The first night? Long, I said. Quiet in the bad way. I thought about it. The sounds from below changing. And those things at the hotel door, just pressing, not loud. That was the hard part. Loud would have been almost easier. She nodded. What was it like in the service corridor? I asked. Similar. We could hear them through the walls. The restaurant is 2 walls over from the east service corridor, and there was something, a lot of them, in the restaurant. She paused. Nathan found a vent gap between the service corridor and the restaurant kitchen area. We could hear them in the kitchen, just moving around in there, knocking things over. Not looking for us, just drifting. The smell of food left out maybe, drawing them in. Probably. She set the concrete piece down. Vicky prayed, the whole time. Not loud, just her lips moving. I don't know if she was praying, but it looked like it, and I thought, it's probably good. If that's the mechanism that keeps you functioning, what was yours? Kelly looked at her hands. I kept thinking about every guest I'd ever checked into that hotel, who I was genuinely mean to in my head. Like, whatever the front desk smile polite version of tolerating someone is, but inside I was. She shook her head. You know the ones who treat you like you're a screen to interact with, not a person. Every person in customer service knows those ones. I kept thinking about them, specifically, making up stories about why they were like that. This one guy who used to come in every 3rd Monday, never said thank you, always complained about the room position. I spent maybe 3 hours in that service corridor deciding his backstory, gave him a terrible childhood, made him almost sympathetic. She paused. I think I was trying to stay, I don't know, humane, while the sounds next door were not. I put my arm around her. She leaned against my shoulder for a moment. You did good, I said. So did you, she said. Saturday night. Martin's condition progressed in the way Chloe had predicted. I was awake when it happened. I'd been on watch rotation, which we'd set up formally, 2 people at a time on 4-hour shifts. Chloe and I were the last shift before dawn, which meant it was maybe 5 in the morning when she touched my arm and pointed. Martin was awake. He was sitting up in the far corner where he'd been sleeping. He'd insisted on being separated from the group by a respectful distance, and Theo had stayed close to him, which I'd allowed because Theo was old enough to make that call, and Chloe was monitoring. Martin was sitting up, and he was looking at the wall with an expression that was not the expression of a man looking at a wall. It was the other thing, the thing I'd seen from the bridge, and from the hotel, and from the construction site overview. The absence of the thing that makes a face rather than just a surface. Chloe moved first. She got between Martin and the rest of the group without drama, just repositioned, and she said his name quietly. He didn't respond to his name. Theo was awake and watching. He'd been watching for hours, I realized. He knew. Martin stood up. Not sudden, not violent. Just stood up, the way someone stands up who is no longer thinking about why they're standing up. He took one step forward. Chloe said his name again. I was beside her now. Martin turned toward us, turned towards sound, and his eyes, in the lantern light, were... I'm not going to describe them in detail. Not because I can't, but because I don't want to. He was Martin Oakes 2 days ago, and I talked to him about his book, and I don't want to reduce him to a description. What I did, I took a breath, and I said, Martin, one more time, and when there was nothing behind the eyes that responded to his name, I knew Chloe had been right about the timeline and I was out of time. We managed it, not gracefully, not without difficulty, or without Theo being the one who cried quietly in the stairwell afterward, and without Chloe sitting in complete silence for 30 minutes after, and without me spending a long time looking at the city from the 4th floor deck in the cold before dawn. Thinking about a business traveler who grabbed a chair when he was scared and handed over his trail mix and read his novel until the last possible moment, because reading your novel is an act of resistance against complete darkness, and I've thought about that many times since. We managed it, and we buried him in the construction site aggregate in the lot before dawn, and Chloe read something from memory. She said it was from the Book of Job and she wasn't sure she had all the words right, but it didn't matter. And Theo put Martin's novel on top, which I think was right. And then we went back to work. Sunday we moved. Pre-departure checks, both vehicles full prepped, supplies loaded and secured, everyone with a job and a position. 15 people, minus Martin, 14. Bobby's truck took 6, cab plus 4 in the bed with the tailgate up and supplies to brace against. The transit took 8 including driver, which was Wes, because he'd driven in this city for years and knew the streets. I drove the F-350. Never drove an F-350 in my life. It's not difficult. The keys Bobby gave me worked. We had a route. North on the alley to 5th Avenue. West 1 block to avoid the main Charter Street concentration. North on Grant Street toward the river. Across the 7th Street Bridge. Then north and west to Route 19 and up to the airport. Bobby had marked every alternative on a printed city map he'd had in the site office, because Bobby was the kind of foreman who kept printed maps, which I will be grateful for until I die. I'll tell you about the gas station, because it matters for the math. The Sunoco on the corner of Grant and 3rd was intact. Unbreached, gate still down, no visible infected. We stopped, both vehicles, and I went in through the emergency access panel on the side of the building, which I knew about, because I'd used it during a maintenance call when a guest had locked their keys inside a commercial vehicle and needed gas in a hurry. The panel gave access to the interior from the side, bypassing the front door. Inside, intact, the pump system runs on a separate generator circuit that was still live. I got both vehicles fueled to full from the exterior pump after I figured out the manual override in the service room. While I was doing that, Bridget and Nadine went through the station's interior with bags from our supplies. What they brought out: 12 bottles of water, 8 Gatorades, 14 bags of chips and nuts, 2 boxes of protein bars, a canned soup section that was mostly chicken noodle, a display of beef jerky, a first aid kit behind the counter, 2 boxes of matches, 2 camping lighters, a bag of road flares, a tow strap from the automotive section, and a Pittsburgh City road atlas that was more detailed than the printed map Bobby had. They also brought out the coffee, an urn of it that was still warm, because the station had been running on its generator until recently, and the coffee maker was on the same circuit. We drank gas station coffee in a changed city on a Sunday morning, all 14 of us, standing beside the vehicles in the cold. It was, despite everything, a real cup of coffee, and it was good. The route north took 40 minutes. I won't make it sound clean. There were places on Grant Street where the infected were present enough that I went up on the sidewalk to avoid a cluster, felt the curb under the tires, and kept moving. There was a point on the 7th Street bridge where I had to stop because there were 3 infected in the center lane, and I sat on the horn for 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds. And they turned toward the sound and moved toward us, and I drove at them slowly, and they got out of the way. Not because they thought to get out of the way, but because the motion of a large truck approaching is a stimulus that overrides the auditory draw, and they dispersed enough to pass. I have no idea if that would work in every situation. It worked in that one. Route 19 north of the city was lighter, more sparse. We passed 2 abandoned vehicles and one situation I won't describe in detail because the people in it were beyond help and we couldn't stop. Kelly was in the transit and I was in the truck, and I was glad she was in the transit for that part. The airport perimeter came into view at 9:14 a.m. Sunday, 4.5 days after Thursday morning on the Skybridge. There were vehicles at the main access road, military vehicles, National Guard, which I had not expected to see, and which produced a specific physical sensation when I saw them. The kind that starts in your chest and goes outward. The kind that means you've been managing on your own for long enough that the sight of other organized humans feels like something you didn't know you'd been waiting for. We stopped at the checkpoint. A soldier, young, wearing gear that looked like it had been put on in a hurry a few days ago, came to my window. "How many in your party?" 14, I said. "Anyone injured? Any exposure?" One individual in our group had surface contact, scratches, and did not survive. We addressed it before departing. Everyone else is uninjured. He looked at me. At the truck. At the transit visible behind me. "Pull through to the processing area," he said. I pulled through. I'll tell you about the airport in another story, maybe. There's plenty to tell. The inside of an airport being used as a shelter is its own world, and it was not a simple or calm one. And what happened there over the following days and weeks involves other people and other decisions and other things that maybe deserve their own accounting. What I'll tell you now is this. The Allegheny County Airport Shelter had a communications center, a real one, with satellite phones and a radio network. One of the volunteers working it was a woman named Keller, early 30s, who'd come from the south side and had been running the communications grid since day 2. I asked her to help me try to reach Cranberry Township, which is where Donna would have gone if she'd gone anywhere. She found the right frequency and held the phone out to me. It rang 4 times, and Donna answered it. She said my name, just my name, the way she's said it for 31 years, which is a specific sound I'd been putting off thinking about for 5 days, because thinking about it was too much. I said her name back. Kelly was standing 3 feet behind me. I could hear her because she makes the same sound Donna makes when she cries, which is almost nothing, just a quality of silence that changes. Donna said, "Are you okay?" I said, "We're at the airport." She said, "Both of you?" I said, "Both of us." There was a long pause on the line that was full of something I don't have words for. The 31 years of them, maybe, and the 5 days of all of this, and the specific thing that a voice through a phone means when you've spent 5 days on a glass bridge and a concrete building thinking about that voice. Then Donna said, very practically, "I'm going to need directions to the airport." And I laughed. The first full laugh in 5 days, the kind that surprises you and takes up more air than you expected. "I'll find out the route," I said. I've been thinking about what to take from it. People ask that. When you've been through something, they want you to have learned something that makes it meaningful, the takeaway, the lesson. Honestly, the main thing I keep coming back to is the panel inspection. The silicone seal on panels 7 through 11 that I was looking at when it all started. The hairline gap where the weather stripping had shrunk back. That's what I was doing when my radio went. That's the thing I was thinking about. And the crazy thing is, the seal mattered. The seal is why we had water. The utility room was plumbed because the seal needed maintenance access. The seal is why I knew about the inspection port. The seal is why I knew there was a ceiling cavity above the bridge. 22 years of doing my job, and the most important thing I did was know where the condensation was coming from. That's not profound. I know it's not profound. It's just what happened to be true. Chloe is working at the airport medical station now. She was staffing a full shift before we'd been there 48 hours. Bobby Crane is helping with construction and fortification assessments. The airport has a lot of both. Theo came to find me on Monday morning and asked if he still had a job. I told him that depended entirely on the Aldridge Grand's management surviving long enough to make HR decisions, which we both agreed was uncertain. He laughed. First time I'd heard him laugh. It was a good sound. Drexler I've seen twice. He doesn't approach me, and I don't approach him. We've nodded at each other. There will be time for the rest of it, whatever the rest of it is. Right now there's not enough time or energy for accounting, and I don't know if accounting is what's needed anyway. Bridget's housekeeping cart is in the airport shelter. She brought it all the way from the bridge through the building and into the van and into the shelter, because Bridget does not leave things unfinished, and she does not abandon what she started. The cart has 2 granola bars left on it, which she has saved. For what? She hasn't said. Kelly is at the communications center with Keller. She's been there since Sunday evening, and I think she's found something that makes sense to her, in the shape of the work they're doing there. I check on her. She tells me she's fine, and in the specific way she says it, which is her mother's way, I believe her. And me. I'm doing what I always do, which is walking the building, looking for what needs fixing. An airport, as it turns out, has a tremendous number of maintenance needs when it's been converted to a shelter for several hundred people who weren't supposed to be there. The HVAC system wasn't designed for this occupancy load. The plumbing in the East Terminal is running at twice its intended capacity. Someone needs to figure out the generator fuel management before we run low in a week. I have my clipboard. I have my key ring. I have the pink flamingo lanyard. I'm going to start with the East Terminal plumbing, because water is always the immediate problem, and that's always where you start.